Good evening from not just Brazil, but good evening from, I believe, South America, right, AJ?
Yep, Colombia.
He's in Colombia. I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I brought AJ in specifically because of
Yep,
what I want to talk
Colombia.
about is something that he can relate to through some things that he's doing. But I want to tell everybody first, and this is something I'm getting used to. Make sure you click the subscribe and the thumbs up and the bell. And I always say I'm old enough to remember when you could just click one and it got you everything, but now they want to complicate things. And I tell people who are watching, I always try to pretend like it's somebody's first time. I talk about three big things here. One of them is international issues. Like today, we're talking about how learning a second language directly translates into life and money and ease of different things. But I also do a lot of talking about money. I love talking about debt, credit cards, how I hate them both. I was a financial professional before I retired. I talk about making and saving. And I also talk a lot about social issues and world travel and a lot of the things that in the past we've talked about on this channel that we can't talk about anymore. I created a Patreon channel for a lot of the different and more in-depth things that I discuss. Hey, Professor Jeremy Stephen tuned in. Thank you for your support. We have differing views on how money goes, ups and downs, but he's going to be back soon. I don't know. You two haven't been on together. I might have to arrange that. But I don't want to bury the lead. I want to go into specifically how I titled this because there's no cheap or free way to learn a new language effectively. Even if you go to a country, you've paid to go there, you've paid to live there. But what I want to talk about is how that second language thing pays off in the long term. And most people think, all right, I'm going to learn Brazilian Portuguese to go hang out with YusefWateef in Sao Paulo. I'm going to learn Spanish as spoken in Colombia to go hang out with AJ and his friends. That's actually tip of the iceberg. That's what people see on top. I want to share something that came up with a dear friend of mine who has kids. And they were talking to me about different financial packages that they were looking at to save for their children's education. They were like, it just gets more and more depressing. I don't know if anybody out there has kids. I don't have any kids. AJ, you got kids?
No kids.
Okay. So I can do that from a cold financial perspective. And I explained to them, I said, well, as Americans, the price of education is going up and up and up, but you might be able to take advantage of your children going to school abroad. And they said, but wait a minute, Watt, that's even more expensive. I said, it doesn't have to be. I've lived in 15 countries for years at a time. AJ, how many places have you laid your head down?
Laid my head down. Right now, 6.
We represent a small but growing minority of people who have a lot of international experience. So here's what I've observed, and I want you to tell me if I'm wrong. The stunning and overwhelming majority of people in the United States speak one language, but the majority of people in other countries speak two. And I'm going to tell you how, or more. I have friends that speak 3 or 4 fluently because they just.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I talked to my friend about, I said, well, are your children studying any languages in school? She said, yeah, they take Spanish class. I said, listen, sit down with your kids, make sure they do their Spanish homework, have Spanish day at home. Well, why? Why should me and my husband take time out of our busy schedule when they're learning Spanish? I said, well, what you don't understand is that when your children turn 18 years old, being bilingual, they can take any kind of an exam given by any university, and lots of universities will give you the exam for free. Contact the embassy in your neighborhood for a different country. If they can get certified as being fluent in Spanish, that opens them up to go to university all over the Spanish-speaking world. She said, well, how is that? We would have to pay. I said, yes. The problem is, excuse me, the cost of education is so much cheaper that you could pay out of pocket for your children to go live abroad in Spain or in Mexico or in Colombia, pay for all of their school education and still pay less than you would in an average university in the United States.
Sure.
Because, and I wanted to bounce this by you because you have an association with, and I don't know how deep I can go into this, AJ, you have an association with a university in Colombia. You can only go as far as you can for professional reasons, but what is the average tuition like for the university that you do business with?
You know what? I've never asked them about their tuition. What's ironic though is when you were saying that, I played American football here when I first got here, and there is a guy, one of my teammates named Marvin. Marvin is here studying to become a doctor, and he came from Germany because he's bilingual. He knows Spanish, so he's getting his medical degree here because it's cheaper than being anywhere else.
Wow.
So he still gets a first class education, but he's paying third world prices.
And I have a lot of my my cohorts. They go, but you're learning in another country, because they don't know. And this is part of the American disadvantage. Most Americans don't know that the level of education and everything else is just as good in a great many countries in the world. Oh, hello, Just Ask Char. Riding by with a hello and thumbs up. Greetings. Hey, I hope you have a great evening. The door is always open for you. I hope you and I get to chat soon. I want to show this to people. Look at that. Spanish, where is it spoken? That's just a simple list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's just 20 countries. I know that there's more.
So the thing is, what's interesting, if people Google languages, so the first most spoken language is Mandarin, which is to be expected because of the Chinese. The second most spoken language is Spanish. There are actually more Spanish speakers than English speakers
in the world.
In the world, yeah.
You know what? Let me pull something up here, because what you said about China triggered a memory. On a side note, I don't know if anybody here. By the way, I'll leave that list up just for a little while, because I want people to get a real grasp on how many places you can go that have top-notch education, where you can go and take education, not even for free, not even at a discount. But when you look at the amount of time you would take to pay off an American student loan versus being able to work in another country at whatever rate you make, people still work their way through school in a lot of these places. That's the concept of people still being able to work their way through university. My goodness. I don't want to go too deep into things that you and I talked about personally. Can you tell us how this whole second language thing is playing out where you are, without giving too many details away? I don't want to give up too much of your secret sauce about the second language and how you're building that into your business model.
One of the things I do is I teach people how to become professional speakers. And one of the things that really catapulted my career was when I went and spoke internationally. So what I figured out was, I know there are event planners. I have great relationships with event planners. Event planners need speakers. I know speakers that want to get in front of event planners. So I put the two together. So I'm doing an international speaker showcase in Colombia in July. Now, the thing is, how I got in with the universities is because universities over here teach English, right? Because they want their students to learn English for some of the professions over here. Before you graduate, you have to be at a certain level in the English language. So that was a great end for me, because I'm always looking where I can leverage things. So what I could leverage was, hey, I'm bringing professional speakers from the US down, and I know your students need to be involved with more English. You want them with more native speakers. This is an opportunity. So I found a need, and you better believe in that. I'm using that to figure out how I can get in and learn Spanish, find Spanish professional speakers, because out of all of those countries you just showed, and they're going to be in need of speakers as well, right? So that's one of the reasons why I came to Colombia, was to learn Spanish, so that I could not only give seminars in English, but also Spanish.
So I don't even know if they caught all of that. You just gave, basically, I could have told everything. You just gave them all the candy for free.
Yeah, I don't care.
You're telling me that what you managed to do was, in a Spanish-speaking nation, put together a group of public speakers that go to Latin countries where they can do presentations in English to people down there for whom their second language is English, but you make money off the presentations by being the coordinator.
Of course.
My goodness. My goodness.
Of course. It's all about seeing the need. It's all about being able to leverage the need. Like, you want to find out where everybody could win. So when I look at business opportunities, I look at, okay, this side needs this side also needs. Like, they have a need. How can I come through and be the middleman and make everybody happy? You know, for the universities, they get to get professional speakers that come down here and they don't have to pay because I take care of that, right?
Now, did everybody catch that? Did everybody catch that he used simply understanding how important a second language is to somebody in another country to create an entirely different business model? That as Americans who generally don't understand the second languages are a thing, he just tapped into a stream of revenue. And I'm talking about it from a cold-hearted money standpoint. People know I love talking about money. He just tapped into an entire stream of revenue. I think that most people would never even be able to think of. He just gave you the game. How many of you would pick that up and say, I'm going to see if I can pull that off? Now, the reason we can talk about this openly, most people aren't willing to do that extra work, but I tell people all the time, learning a second language is probably, just like people who want to make their lives better, I always say, well, start exercising. You might be a guy that wants to do weightlifting. You might be a woman that wants to take up yoga, Pilates, but when you get your body better, you feel better. People say, I want to improve my condition or go into an area where I don't have to work as hard. There are so many options open to you if you learn a second language that most people will never even think of. When you talked about China, it reminded me of something. I hope everybody gets to watch this one. Hold on a second. Let me show you guys. I had a great conversation with a friend of mine about her time in jail in China. She's a Black American woman who got in jail in China. I'm not going to tell her story for her, but she gives a couple minutes of the story in Chinese. Because when I say she was in China, I had only spent a couple of years in China. She lived in China for many years and ended up, when smart people do stupid things, she ended up getting jammed up in China over some bullshit that could have been avoided. I'm not going to talk down on the girl, but Jeff Johnson, brother Jeff Johnson in the DMV. Welcome. Yeah, you're gonna have to watch that one later, AJ.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch that one later.
It's quite the story. It's quite the story.
Yeah. So it's funny. I think, to me, learning another language actually opens your mind up to different possibilities because you have to think different. Because what we've been taught and programmed as what's right and what's acceptable isn't always the case. Even when you're just looking at the law of the language, how the language operates. So I feel like it's another part of your brain that starts opening once you have to think of languages, because you're like, yo, this doesn't make sense. Like, okay, but this doesn't make sense in English. Okay, so now I have to think totally different. And I really think, I feel like I've become more creative.
Oh, I know you have. I know we all have.
I'm able to see things from a different light because I look at language now as, okay, why do they speak like this? Why does their grammar come together like this, right? And then for some parts of it, it makes more sense than the U.S., right? It makes more sense than English.
It makes more sense than English because English is spoken outside of America just differently. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes more sense. So I know one of the things for me that was a big was when I realized that you couldn't say like, I'm going to Yusef's house, right?
In Spanish?
In Spanish, it's the house of Yusef. So
right.
Yeah, so everything is this of that. And it was just like, okay, wow, that's because we so used to saying like, oh, I'll be at, I'm going to my mom's house, and in Spanish it's the house of mom. And then you start breaking it down like, okay, this is why they say that. This is how these words go together. This is the theory behind the language. And honestly, I do feel like it opens up parts in your brain that start firing, and you're able to then look at other things from uh, different areas. And like I said, that's how. Like I think I've become very creative just by learning Spanish more.
Well, I know as a Latin language, Portuguese, I would say, if I was going to AJ's house, I would say, Yo estoy indo para casa de AJ. So casa de AJ.
Yeah, the House of Asia, yeah.
It gives that same ending because they're Latin languages.
Uh-huh.
And it gives you, hey, Art, welcome. I hope you and I can catch up again soon. Art does these interesting, brilliant pieces of artwork while he's doing his streams and chats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He also shared a few insights that he didn't get to go into deeply because they're on YouTube, and I want him to all have a open invitation to my Patreon channel where I'm sharing a lot of other things. Oh, you know what? I almost forgot. Hold on. Let me do this real quick. Everybody stop what you're doing. The thing about the internet that I love is that everybody can be friends and it doesn't take away from anybody else. It's not like the old days where you had a television show that started at 8 o'clock, and if mine wasn't yours, we had to go to 2 separate rooms. I want everybody to go check out AJ Vasa. I want you to go check him out right there on Instagram. I'm not gonna go through your whole thing. Let me do this. I'm also gonna give him your Twitter feed. I don't have that one on speed dial. Let's see.
Yeah, you're gonna make me get more start doing more on Twitter. You get my Twitter feed up.
Do you use Twitter quite often?
Heck no. I'm just now learning to use social media, period. I'm not a big social media user right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about social media. It's one of those things where it's almost not an option if you're a professional at all. Now, I'm not telling everyone they have to do what we do. We have our faces out and we're doing these chats. But the reality is that if you don't have something that allows people to see what I would call a continuity, it's like having an online resume. They can look at a continuity and say, well, this person says he's this. Let's see how far back he's been that person. I've had clients hire me, not at all based on my resume, but based solely on what they went and looked at my videos, saw other people talking about me and said, well, I want to hire you to edit. Well, hold on a second. Why don't we do this since we're on the page? For people who don't know, my primary source of income, out here is long before I retired from the financial field, I created a business, the Peer Circle, and I do editing, copy editing, proofreading. You may have a contract that has to be done in university level English. They hire me for that. You may have already written a book, a journal, a paper that has to be edited for university level English. That's what people hire me for. Now, of course, locally, I work with a lot of businessmen who do things, for example, like TED Talks, let's say. And I will spend 6 months with them, grilling them on everything involving language, professional speaking habits, all those things. And I tell people, if you catch me on LinkedIn, that's my name, that's who I am. If you catch me on LinkedIn, don't look at my resume first. I tell everybody the most important thing to look at is you go all the way down and go to recommendations, because this is where other business professionals tell you who I am and what I've done. These are the people that give me my professional accreditation. This is my reputation table. After that, you can go look at the rest of the resume because that's fun too. Iori 666 just got in. What's good? Iori and I were talking investments before. We actually had a conversation. One of the things I talked to him about is I want to do an investment jamboree with all my friends who deal in any kind of financial wherewithal, be it investments, be it mutual funds, be it cryptocurrency, be it buying silver or gold. And I want to do a private chat for the Patreon where we all get together and share those tidbits of information. But going back to this language thing, when you find out learning a second language, when you talked about how it opens your brain up. There are words that don't translate that you wish you could. A word, I'll give you an example. There is a word in Portuguese, and I'm going to show you the way it translates online, and then tell you it doesn't matter. There is a word called saudade. There is no way that anyone who speaks Brazilian Portuguese can tell you that the word means missing. It also doesn't translate directly into longing or yearning or nostalgia or missing. It's a feeling that you can have for something that you may never have actually had, but you still felt like you had it and lost it and went away. And I know I sound like a crazy man when I said that. But the privilege of learning second languages is that it allows you to open your brain up into a way that people who only speak one language or the other can't, and they can't catch you.
Yeah. So even and it's funny because as Christian as the U.S. is, like I learned from a
do that.
Well, as many churches, is that better? As many churches as the U.S. has, I learned from a professor when I was in college. This dude was, I mean, he was brilliant. Went to Harvard. He's the one that actually put me on different languages because he was like, yo, there is like, if you go to the original language of the Bible, like there are parts in the Bible where we've translated it, but he's like, there is no translation for it. It's like, it's parts where it says like God almost exhales, like he sighs, but it's not it was interesting. So he's the one that really got me thinking like, dang, it's so much stuff that, you know, we think the English language, well, I always thought the English language could explain so much. And then as I'm getting out, I'm realizing there's a lot of stuff it can't explain because we don't have words for that, because we don't have meaning for that. And if you don't know it, you just got to be around it. You got to be around it to feel it and get it. Then you'd be like, oh, okay. And then I think that's why your brain continues to open up because it's like, how do I even grasp this without, like, if I stay closed-minded as an English speaker, I'll never be able to grasp it.
Right. Right. Let me see. When you said I am in, did you mean you were in on Patreon? And if you did, I appreciate that. Matter of fact, I have some content coming out for that after you and I get done chatting. But that's the whole thing that I try to get across to people. I try to get across to them that learning a second language, it may not necessarily be free or cheap, but it does things later in life. And I mean, from a social context, when you have access, the first time I saw this with my friends in China who spoke fluent English because they were American, but also spoke and wrote fluent Chinese. Because they could access Chinese social media, Chinese texting apps, they had access to literally a different world.
Exactly. It's access. It is literally, it's like a key. It is learning different languages is like a key to a whole different world. And you don't even realize that the world is happening right under your nose. Right? When you go come visit, if you ever come to Colombia and visit or go to Brazil, yo, people are talking all around. You have no idea what they're saying unless you have the key. And that key unlocks things. That key unlocks being able to maneuver right, being able to understand when danger is present, being able to not get played by regular people, right? A lot of times now, I still tell people, no entiendo español. And then they start talking and I'm listening.
That's a good one.
Whenever I tell them I don't understand, then they feel free to talk around me.
Yes.
And now I can just observe and I can piece it together. And I'm not fluent in Spanish yet, but I'm starting to be dangerous.
He said, I'm not fluent, I'm just dangerous.
Yeah,
I like that.
To be dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, so, when people don't think you understand, you'd be amazed at how foolish they become.
And I love it. I love it. So I'll I'll tell you, when I been down here, I had because I got a guy that translates for me. If it's like a business settings, and sometimes I'll just have him around just listening to what's being said. So I work with a realtor. The realtor said he brought a translator for me.
Oh
So
wow.
so listen how this works. So the guy that's supposed to be translating for me, when I tell him what I want him to translate, he doesn't translate it. He actually coaches them on how to respond to me. Because all of them working together.
Right.
Right? So they're working
Yeah.
together. So while I'm thinking he's translating, they're actually discussing how to get over. Because I don't understand.
Yeah. And it's a cold world out there because not everybody's your friend. When you figure out what people are saying, and that person that was supposed to be, kind of helping you out, I'm your I'll translate. You know what? I passed the store down the road, not telling you that store is owned by his cousin,
Of
who's
course.
get over on you.
Of course.
I tell people when they travel the world, it's not that traveling the world gives you amazing people that are everyone's great and amazing. No, it just shows you a bigger world. It's just as good or bad as the rest.
Yeah, it's just people.
It's just people.
Yeah, it's just people.
Listen, I hope that we gave some people a few nuggets to chew on tonight. I hope that we gave these people something that didn't come from a place of arrogance, but a place of we know what it's like on the other side of the mountain. We know how good it is when you get one of those keys in your hand.
Yeah. Yeah. When you start unlocking doors, it's amazing. And it's even amazing for them. I'll tell you, and I gotta brag on my dentist, man, because this dude, man. So one of the reasons I deal with this dentist is because he speaks English, right? So I told him I had to get 3 fillings last Friday. All right. I told him, hey, I'm gonna cancel because I have 7 calls lined up after I'm supposed to get my fillings, and I don't want to be talking, with the big lip. This dude told me, he said, don't worry about it, I got you. I came in, he actually did my fillings with no numbing.
Whew, you got more like a sack of potatoes, don't you?
I never had that done before. Bro, when I tell you, this dude was on point. I don't have a very high threshold for pain. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I may be a big guy, my threshold is very limited. But the way he did it, and it was amazing. This dude did 3 fillings with no with no numbing anything. I was amazed. Which
Wow.
made me think, how often do we get stuff and we don't? Talking about languages, right? Because even with languages, there are languages inside of a language. So there is languages. When you're a dentist, you understand a different language than a regular person. When you're a doctor, you understand a different language. So having him translate the language of dentistry for me into something I could understand, he let me know I didn't need to get numb, like where my feelings were. And he was like, I'm going to do some things that may be uncomfortable for a second, but it's going to hurt a lot less than me sticking a needle in your gums. And bruh, 3 fillings with with no numb. It was crazy.
Wow.
Crazy.
Now here's the thing. I'll give you another example. For example, I have a realtor here who, and if you ever decide to come here, I have a realtor who I send all my friends to because she speaks fluent English.
Fluent,
exactly. A big word. Fluent's a big word. She can communicate effectively in English.
Yes. And that's the thing. You don't have to be fluent. You just have to be able to communicate effectively.
Yep.
That's the thing. So, and I am coming. I am coming to Brazil. Don't worry. It's happening.
And for me, what you said about contextual language, I started learning 2 things. I learned food. And by the way, shout out to Uncle Ladrunius. This is his personal shout out for the month, because he actually came in and he's one of the subscribers on my Patreon site, and I want to let him know that I appreciate that. I've got some stuff coming out for him later tonight, some stuff coming out for that the people there with him. I'll show you something. You know, when you get into what you love, if you have a good private coach for your language, for example, look at that. Okay, there. I learned Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu terms, very specific, in English. Now, could I discuss with you dentistry in English? No. But when I visit a school or when I'm on the mat, I don't have to look like, now don't get me wrong, they speak very quick. But when you start listening and you already understand the context of what it's like with your chin to choke, to grab, you know, to twist, different, you know, and I want to get into specific things like the difference between a Gable grip, a pretzel grip for choking, things like that I want to get into. I'm not there yet. But when you start learning, I think everyone should augment their school learning with a personal coach if you can. I'm actually going to go into that on my Patreon, how to get a personal coach in a language. I think I'm going to put some resources out there on my cutthroats for Patreon. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Actually, oh, well, I should probably give some context because I just used a word that sounds kind of awkward. Let's see. I'm sure you've seen this. When I say the cutthroats, I did some egregious naming of the areas in which I have. Let's see where. I don't know if I can. How do I even do this from my page? That's interesting. Huh. Yeah, I have to actually look and see how, because I'm only on the creative side. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let's see if this works. I'll show everybody a quick intro into what I've started here. Let's see. And then I'll let everybody go. Check that out. These are the levels for the Patreon. Now, they've got long descriptions because everyone knows that I'm very long-winded, but these are my Patreons. I put Arrogance, Cutthroat, and Arcane. People who kind of know me kind of know what's up, but I go into a little bit into the details of what each one means, and my channel here has been growing, and I want to let everybody know that I appreciate that as well. So I say that to say this. I'm going to give you any last words, Brother AJ.
So this is what my last words is, and this is for just part of what I do just for a living. If you have any of your people that want to become professional speakers and you want to start sharing your message, yo, get in touch with me. Like, I'll show you how to find 50 speaking engagements in 30 minutes. Like, that's a huge thing. People don't know how to find speaking engagement. So that's one of the ways that I've really been growing organically. It's just by giving so much value. And it's the funny thing is, man, once again, thinking outside the box, right? Expanding your mind with language. I'm using the language of other people to actually help me promote this without ads. So like, I've almost filled out this whole first speaker showcase, 0 ads, right? Because I get to use other people's language to their communities. So, yo, if any of your people ever want to become professional speakers, get paid to speak, yo, get in touch with me. I'll show you how to find 50 speaking engagements in 30 minutes. Complimentary.
Well, there's 2 things. One, do you have a website for this that I can point people to?
So this is what I'm gonna do, because better than the website is just go to my Calendly link. I'm gonna give you that. Hold on, go to your StreamYard. Nope, that's the wrong one. Don't put that one on there. Hold on. I gave you the wrong Calendly, bro. Here you go. Bam. Use that one. But yeah, they can just click on the Calendly link, find a time that works with you, and then we'll just chop it up. I'll show you how I find speaking engagements and how Yusef, you know how it is living somewhere else. Like, I come back to the States and like I just booked a speaking engagement. I'm getting paid $5,000 to come speak, right? So Yo, I only got to come back to the States once a month.
Nice.
Yo.
Well, let's do this. Let's do this. First off, when we get done, can you please go register that website so you can have the website with the name? I mean, that's important. Just whatever it is.
Oh, so the website is getting worked on. That's the problem. That's the problem. Okay. So I got the website. It's getting worked on. And right now, and I think this goes for any entrepreneur, you'll start realizing once you start growing, growth is great, but growth is also I don't want to say scary.
Oh, it's scary. For me, it is.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed of it.
It's so much that has to be done at one time that you just have to choose what you're gonna focus on. Right?
Yep.
And so like the website, as much as I want it to be done, like as a small business owner, you realize very quickly websites don't make me sales. I make me sales. Right? I tell anybody when people talk about, I can't get started because I don't have a website. I tell anybody, if you can't sell a person by talking to them, if they don't want to get down with you by talking to them, they're not going to get off the phone with you and go to your website and then be like,
you know what? Yeah. You and I are going to have to disagree about that another time. I'm going to do one. I know I keep telling you I got one more thing to do. You and I are going to have a civil disagreement on that later. Because my career in the financial business has taught me that we may both be correct. Okay. We may both be correct. So let me also do this. Just as I said, my big shout out to Uncle Adunius, I want to give a big shout out to somebody else who became a patron. And he's not here right now, but I'll tell you what I am going to do. I'm going to share his Twitter account with everybody. Because speaking of the power of being bilingual, he's a Brazilian who's fluent in English, got access to my network, and I was able to do some things with him.
Nice.
I mean, it doesn't get any more literal in how these things go through. So let's see. I'm going to find him. His name's Davi.
Davi?
No, not how would I put it? Davi, but it's pronounced differently in.
Or is it just Davi?
Yeah.
Okay, Davi.
Let's see. For some reason, I cannot find his. There he is. He's actually got a very cool looking, let's see. There he is. That guy, DaviBottini.com. Big shout out to him and a big thank you to him as someone who came to me, looked at the things that I was bringing value to, and then jumped on my Patreon. He's a great guy. Great guy. All right, everybody. Listen, I hope everybody here has a great night. I'll probably, and by the way, thank you for the flattery, Uncle Adunius. Hope everybody has a great night. I'm going to stick around AJ for a quick second and start looking for your Patreon updates not too long from now. If not, before you go to bed, depending on what time it is where you are, check in the morning. All right. Hope everybody has a